According to the AMATS Complete Streets policy, it is this. Complete streets means streets that are designed, used, and operated to enable safe, equitable access for all traffic. So traffic is further defined as persons in wheelchairs, pedestrians, cyclists, people driving, people taking transit, and users of all ages and abilities, right? So we're going to see that term in particular, all ages and abilities, play out throughout this presentation. It's about safety, but it's also about comfort. It's about user experience. When we think about the network, we want to be thinking about not just the streetscape in its entirety, but we want to be thinking about all of the different modes that are going to be using that street or that corridor. And we want to think about the ways that the facilities we build for those modes and the people in those facilities are interacting.
So my understanding is DOT is working on a complete streets policy, which we will definitely coordinate with that effort. It's going to be different than this effort since the plan is going to be more implementation focused. But at the same time, we want to make sure, and they're part of the stakeholder group that we'll be consulting regularly. So we will get their thoughts on both this plan and maybe learn something from their policy that we could incorporate into our efforts. One that's definitely important to talk about is the context-sensitive solutions process. What is CSS? So context-sensitive solutions is a program or a policy and a process where municipal and state projects are required to go through an actual land use entitlement program through the municipality that vets it for being context sensitive. And it's a little bit subjective. You know, we have plans in Anchorage that are very good plans, but sometimes there are multiple layers. There might be an important bike route, important freight route, an important pedestrian route, and how do you balance all those competing priorities? And that's where the CSS policy is helpful in terms of having that conversation, but there's often not enough specificity in terms of this corridor needs this type of design, this one needs this type of design. So land use, you know, we talked about context a lot. Anchorage has a really good land use plan. It's very important to pair the right type of street with the type of land use that it serves.
So a lot of the design guidance traditionally for streetscape design is based on our street classifications, our functional classifications, right? And so we have our arterials, we have our collectors, and we have our local streets. And everyone's seen diagrams like this, right? What is the function of these different classifications to carry volumes of users? Typically, we're talking about people driving cars. We can still use this arterial, collector, local streets hierarchy, that framework, to define a context that is suitable for pedestrians or for cyclists or for people taking the bus, right? We can do it for freight too. First, we're looking at the number of lanes. We're looking at opportunities to reallocate some of that space for other users, other uses. We're looking at potentially narrowing some of those lanes, right? Wider lanes encourage faster speeds. So how can we right-size them so that A, they have sort of that traffic calming effect, and B, we can use that space for something else. You know, I also want to talk about things like enhanced crossings, not only marked crossings, but the kind of enhancements you can add, rectangular rapid flashing beacons or hawk beacons. You can introduce medians or curb extensions, right? And you can do those all in a way that is not going to constrain things like stormwater drainage. You can do them in ways that allow for more buffer space for snow storage. All of these things require space. And unless we're building a brand new subdivision, we've got to figure out how we want to prioritize the space that we have toward things like this. Generally, the practice has moved toward physical separation as the higher and better sort of facility type, right? The more separation you can have, the less likely that there's going to be conflicts, but it has to be done in the right way. We want to be really thoughtful about how we're not only designing these facilities, but designing the networks and designing the corridors that that are going to allow for really great, safe, comfortable transitions. Same thing's true of transit, right? Not only the transit operations and how well the transit system's functioning, but all of the different elements that contribute to a good transit experience. So that's the bus stop designs, the stop amenities, what it's like waiting for the bus, right? In addition to all of the sorts of service improvements that we can make to the operations of the transit line itself. Again, thinking about from the user experience perspective, like what it means for someone to walk out their door, walk to a bus stop, wait, get on a bus, and then, you know, do the same thing on the opposite end. And then, as Colin was pointing out earlier, thinking about not only the facilities along the corridor, but how we cross the corridor. The second bullet point there is a reference to policies that can establish how frequently those crossings need to be, depending on the variety of different contexts you come across.